So UN Chief Tom Fletcher today said what we already knew several weeks ago, that Palestinians in Gaza are suffering from a man-made famine. This famine has been caused by only one individual. He is arguably the most wretched human animal on the planet, a dreaded terrorist, a despicable individual of Polish descent. His name is Benjamin Netanyahu, currently wanted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. It was he who broke the terms of the ceasefire in March this year and refused to honor the second phase of the ceasefire and announced a complete blockade of Gaza by banning the entry of any food, water, or medicine into the occupied territory. And he was widely supported in his action by the US, the UK, and the wider West. This was nothing less than a genocidal action. Not a single Western country took meaningful action to stop this carnage. What did we expect would happen to Gaza's population when you starved them for more than 5 months? The global fraternity behaved as if nothing had happened. The rogue regime of Netanyahu faced zero sanction. The sporting bodies continued to roll out the red carpet welcome to Israeli teams and its players. The media organizations such as the BBC, the CNN, Sky News, the New York Times, Guardian, and others remained busy only in hounding and demonizing Palestinian victims as they presented Israeli lies as facts. So when Tom Fletcher today announced that Gaza was officially in the grip of a famine, I wasn't surprised to see a member of the BBC move with lightning speed to defend Israel, the perpetrator of this famine in Gaza. Watch the opening remarks of Fletcher and how this woman from BBC, Imogen Fox, reacted.
Be in no doubt that this is irrefutable testimony. It is a famine, the Gaza famine. It is a famine that we could have prevented if we had been allowed. Yet food stacks up at borders because of systematic obstruction by Israel. It is a famine within a few hundred meters of food in a fertile land. It is a famine that hits the most vulnerable first, each with a name, each with a story, that strips people of dignity before it strips them of life, that forces a parent to choose which child to feed, that forces people to risk their lives to seek food. It is a famine that we repeatedly warned of, but that the international media has not been allowed in to cover, to bear witness. It is a famine in 2025, a 21st century famine, watched over by drones and the most advanced military technology in history. It is a famine openly promoted by some Israeli leaders as a weapon of war. It is a famine on all of our watch. Everyone owns this. The Gaza famine is the world's famine. It is a famine that asks, but what did you do? A famine that will and must haunt us all. It is a predictable and a preventable famine. A famine caused by cruelty, justified by revenge, enabled by indifference, and sustained by complicity.
Israel consistently denies that there's famine. Not just the Israeli government, but if you even see, people asked on the streets, they deny. What would you say, maybe to ordinary Israelis?
I think it's important, and many of those that I've been in touch with in recent weeks inside Israel, including survivors of the October 7th massacre in Nir Oz, kibbutz, and elsewhere, they want this food to get in.
I mean, what kind of a human being asks such question with a straight face? She asked Fletcher to respond to ordinary Israelis. Really? So the UN aid chief should convince the perpetrators of war crimes to agree that their action amounted to a crime? And now if you say that, oh, ordinary Israelis are not committing the crimes, so then where is the need for Tom Fletcher to respond to ordinary Israelis? Instead of expressing shock on the plight of average Palestinians, this is what this woman chose to ask. But why single out the BBC for its collusion with Israeli war criminals? This was a Sky News presenter today. Watch how he started his interview by asking why Hamas wouldn't release the hostages. Is he trying to imply that Israel carrying out the mass starvation of the entire Palestinian population in Gaza for more than 5 months is justified just because Hamas has 20 odd hostages in their captivity?
Let's speak now to Mustafa Barghouti, the founder and leader of the Palestinian National Initiative. Mustafa Barghouti, thank you so much for making the time to speak to us today. It's always good to get your perspective on these things. Look, we heard Tom Fletcher there saying that the aid needs to be let in, a plea there to the Israeli government, which I'm sure you will echo. The other side of this, of course, is Hamas holding hostages. If they give up the hostages, then perhaps Israel will stop. So why won't Hamas give up the hostages and bring this war to an end?
Hamas holding 20 hostages and Israel is holding 12,000 Palestinian hostages. You should also mention that. In reality, we are subjected to a war of annihilation of all of us, the Palestinian people. It's not enough for Israel that it has killed already 10% and injured 10% of the population of Gaza. Apply that figure to the United States, you will be talking about 33 million people killed or injured in the course of 22 months. It's not enough for them that they have imposed man-made famine on Gaza. 125,000 children could die at any moment because of starvation that is caused by this Israeli government.
Elsewhere, even employees of British news agency Reuters are now accusing their own employer of enabling the Israeli genocide with their complicity. This was exposed by Declassified UK in its latest investigation. This, according to the report, has created a tension between staff working at the news agency and the management. The issue became more tense after the assassination of Palestinian journalist Anas al-Sharif by Israeli terrorists earlier this month, when Reuters chose to carry this headline: Israel kills Al Jazeera journalist it says was Hamas leader. Sharif had worked with Reuters in the past, but staff noted that the framing highlighted a wider problem in the agency's coverage. Even the BBC and other Western media outlets had chosen to highlight the Israeli justification of the journalist killing in their headlines, which many believed was to almost legitimize the murder of 5 journalists. Even a former BBC newsroom boss, John Williams, had highlighted this by saying that he now feared for the safety of his former BBC colleagues in the newsroom because no one was safe now and Israel could kill anyone with impunity.
The smears that Israel has directed at Palestinian journalists for the last 22 months, there's a pattern here of unsubstantiated allegations that not only delegitimize the individual, they undermine trust in journalism, and that's very dangerous for all of us. The murder of 6 journalists in a single incident is one of the worst attacks on journalists ever. You know, if you remember Charlie Hebdo in Paris in whenever it was, 2008, or the attacks in Afghanistan when a number of journalists were killed in 2016, this ranks up with those attacks as being one of the worst incidents of attacks on journalists ever. You know, in November we have the International Day to End Impunity for Crimes Against Journalists, and there are currently international criminal court indictments against individuals. They need to be seen through and they need to be prosecuted because killing and targeting journalists is a war crime. And if we just turn a blind eye to that, then what's to stop it happening next year or the year after? And all of my former colleagues in this newsroom will be vulnerable because people can see that you can attack journalists and get away with it. And that is not a situation that we want anybody to be in.
Meanwhile, Israeli terrorists have murdered more than 40 people by dropping more American bombs in Gaza City. The objective is simple: flatten Gaza city just like these bloodthirsty terrorists have done to the rest of Gaza. Today they ordered every single medical professional to leave the Gaza city area. And the Western media outlets are still busy protecting Israel. Think about it. What kind of individual you have to be to not get moved by the plight of hundreds of thousands of human beings, including children and babies, whose genocide is being streamed live to our mobile devices in real time? So when we remember the faces of the terrorists who carried out the biggest Holocaust since World War II, we would also be reminded by these collaborators, disguised as media representatives in the West. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.